Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the special election runoff debate. To get everyone caught up on the issues, we recently had an election for Director of Finance after our old Director of Finance, Joey Pommier, stepped down from the position. This election had 7 candidates, and of the 2 finalists, we have Nikita Tewari and Cole Stoker. Both of them were able to get a majority, both of them were able to get large portions of the vote, but neither of them were able to break 50%. Constitutionally, we go into a runoff election that is determined by a runoff between the top 2 candidates in the original election. Voting is on Engage. The polls are open, and the polls will be open until 4 p.m. on Friday. And now we're going to get started with this debate. Just to lay out the rules of the debate, candidates will start with opening statements. They will have 3 minutes each to give an opening statement to the crowd. We'll then move into some questions. Some questions are pre-written, some are submitted by students. Candidates will have about 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer each question. If disagreements arise, we will then go to the other candidate with 45-second responses back and forth. Each question will go in the same format until we reach closing statements. At the end of today's debate, each candidate will have the opportunity to give a 2-minute closing argument to the student body. After tonight's debate, it will be recorded, downloaded, and then uploaded to YouTube, where you can share with any of your friends and colleagues here at the University of Portland. We encourage everyone to vote, and we're looking forward to getting started. And with that, we are going to start with the opening statement from Nikita Tewari.
Thank you. In 2020, of the 3,536 undergraduate students who were seeking a degree, 61.5% of these students were female, while 38.5% were male. Now, if you look deeper into these demographics, you will find that 51.6% of these students were Caucasian. However, 18% were Asian, 1.6% were African American, 14% were Hispanic or Latinx, 8.5% were 2 or more races, 1.3% were Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander, and 2.3% were non-resident aliens, totaling around 45.7% of the undergraduate students seeking a degree at the University of Portland to be people of color. Yet our current ASUP Executive Board representatives consist of 4 males and 1 female, all of whom are Caucasian. So I'm not here today to boast about my Excel skills or my ability to navigate the Engage financial budgeting system. I wouldn't be sitting here today if I was not fully qualified to satisfy the requirements and fulfill the needs of Director of Finance. I am here today because I can offer something far more significant to the Executive Board, something that doesn't exist: diversity. The value that I will be able to bring to ASUP is incomparable.
All right, Cole Stoker.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Cole, for those of you who don't know me. I'm a 3rd-year accounting major. I'm also the business school senator, along with Emma Fuller, and I'm also the current ASUP controller. This year, I've not only served the student body as your business school senator and the ASUP controller, but I've also stepped up to lead the spring 2021 finance team, following the departure of the previous director of finance. Through this, I've created not only a new budgeting process, but also the new budget and a team to oversee these funding requests this year. And so far, it's actually turning out a lot better than I could ever imagine. In the first 3 weeks of the semester, we've already spent more than $20,000. And for reference, that's more than we've spent in the entirety of fall of 2020, which is a big win. But now comes the important part: picking a new director of finance. I recognize the importance of this decision, as the director of finance is arguably one of the most critical positions within ASUP. They're responsible not only for managing the only part of tuition that students directly control, but also ensuring that clubs get the money they need. You should vote for me because of my experience, especially through running the spring 2021 finance team. I've gained important knowledge of the ASUP policies and procedures, but have also added my own flair, optimizing these processes and changing them to make them my own. I've also lowered the student activities fee this semester from $135 to $15 per student without impacting the programming that clubs and organizations wish to have this year. But all of that is what I have done. If elected Director of Finance, I promise that the student activities fee will remain at a lower amount than the usual $135 unless classes are fully in person in fall 2021, which for my sake, I hope they are. Additionally, I'm dedicated to a transparent budgeting process because this, at the end of the day, this is your money. You deserve to see where it's going. And finally, I want to continue the outreach within the student body that I'm already doing, because I really do want to be a representative for what the students and the student body wants. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here and considering me for this role. Vote Stoke.
All right, thank you both. Now we're going to move into questions. Between each question, I'll alternate who we start with. In the spirit of that, we'll be starting with Mr. Stoker. Although this question applies to both candidates and both candidates will have an opportunity to answer. Throughout both of your campaigns, you have placed an emphasis on transparency. In both of your campaign literatures, you emphasize that you want to see an ASUP that is financially transparent. What does transparency look like to you as the Director of Finance? Cole?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I have talked a lot about transparency. Transparency to me, first of all, is anyone can email me and say, hey, I want to see the budget. I want to see how you created it, who you created it with. All of those kind of things are totally valid questions to email me and ask. But the bigger deal is I want to be proactive with my transparency. So far, I've already done multiple presentations about our budget to both the ASUP Senate, which is an open forum, so any student can come and sit in the ASUP Senate and could hear my budget presentation in December. But also now I've done a budget presentation for clubs, club leaders, and general students. So all of those are combined into one, but they cover everything that was associated with the budgeting process. And so therefore now it's been posted on the ASUP website for everyone to see. And moving forward, just transparency wise, continuing what I'm doing so that honestly, the students can track where their money's going because they pay in to the student activities fee every year. And so they deserve to see exactly where their money is going.
Thank you. All right, now Nikita, as the Director of Finance, what does transparency look like to you?
So to me, transparency should be a proactive decision. I believe that it's important to always be available. Anytime you have a question, feel free to email me. I'm available on Teams, I'm available on Zoom. But most of all, I believe that informing the student body about our actions through social media is the best way to get the information out there. Throughout my campaign, I was very active and my marketing team helped me get the word out, and I was able to reach a very broad audience. And transparency in the ASUP executive board, I believe, is extremely important. And it's not just sending out emails or having an open forum, which I believe is also equally important. And of course, that's something that everybody has access to, but being proactive about sending out information in a fashion that is available to all students as quick as possible, I believe is what transparency should look like in the future.
Cool, would you like to follow up on this question?
I have no follow-up.
All right, next question then. Nikita, this one's going to go to you first. Every year, the Financial Management Board, headed by the Director of Finance, determines different rules and regulations for club spending. Now, after allocating that money to clubs, What role, if any, should the director of finance play in deciding how and where that money is spent?
So, of course, the director of finance is an important board member. And I think first and foremost, they, after creating that budget, should be able to facilitate conversations between clubs and organizations. And I think it leads back into that idea of transparency and being proactive about not just finalizing a budget and sending it out and marking it off for approval, but also getting the students involved, because that activities fee does come directly from the student body. It is the student body's money that we are handling, and it should be reallocated in a way which they seem fit. So to have student involvement and having open forums for people to come and suggest how they would like their money to be spent, especially clubs and organizations, I believe is the most important way for a director of finance to be proactive beyond just the scope of board meetings.
All right, Cole, let's hear from you. To repeat the question, what role, if any, should the director of finance play in regulating how and where club money is spent?
Yeah, so this has been an important topic that I've already covered, extensively within our group this year and the spring 2021 team. I think an important thing that is overlooked a lot with the director of finance is programming, and how much the director of finance really is impactful of programming that clubs are doing, based on with placing restrictions that are not even necessarily given to us on our own accord, but given to us by the Office of the Controller or the IRS or any of these other organizations. So it's important that the director of finance not only be diligent in showing where money can be spent and where it can't be spent, but also giving programming guides and guiding clubs and club leaders towards ways that they can effectively spend their money, especially in this online space. And so that's something that we were doing and that I've been doing through my club presentation, working with CPB as well as the rest of AACP Senate and club leaders through a club outreach program that we've been piloting, but also working to ensure that clubs can spend money if they want to in this new space that we're kind of navigating. And so I think programming is something that I'd really love to integrate more into the director of finance role.
Nikita, would you like to follow up?
No, I don't have a follow-up.
Okay. Then Cole, this next question is going to go to you first, but I'm going to ask it to both of you. Cole, you've been an ASUP senator before, and you have experience working with the financial board and the director of finance. You market yourself as someone who has the experience to get the job done right. Nikita, you're an ASUP outsider who's been a club leader, has leadership experience, but hasn't worked within ASUP before. You market yourself as someone with fresh ideas and diverse perspectives. My question to both of you is, how does your experience and your background qualify you specifically for this role? Cole, let's hear from you first.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can sit up here and I can tell you all of my accounting courses I've taken and all the time that I've spent studying, but that's not really what students want to know. They want to know why me? Why through the ranks here have I ended up in a position where not only I'm leading this spring team through the budgeting process so far, and I've created this budget, but also why I'll be good for the future and to finish out the rest of this year. And honestly, it really comes down to just working hard and putting myself in the right spot. I sat here a year ago and wasn't necessarily ever thinking of, wasn't even necessarily thinking that ASUP was something that I would consider doing. I did student government in high school, but I sat here and was very much on the outside during 2019 and decided that I would give it a shot and go for it and make some change that I wanted to see in my school. And so I feel that through that process, I've really stepped up and embraced ASUP, as well as working with all of the leaders within ASUP that have been so great and so kind to me. And I've really just found myself in a place where I feel that I'm in a position to effectively lead others. And I feel that the director of finance position is not only a personal growth position for me, but also a position where I can teach and teach others and assist others to achieve their goals and make their change that they want to have.
All right, thank you. Okay, Nikita, to repeat the question, what about your own perspective and past experience uniquely qualifies you for this role?
Thank you. So first and foremost, as most of you will know, I am the president of the South Asian Student Union, and despite working remotely, I currently live in California, and most of my club members live in Oregon and Washington and various states. But my experience with this club has helped me learn how to time manage and communicate well and organize events. In fact, we were able to successfully organize an event where one of my club members, who has never stepped foot on campus, currently still resides in India. She's an international student. She was able to foster relationships with our club members, create friendships, and feel a part of the university and feel as though her voice was heard. And this, my communication skills, are extremely important. And my new perspective, I feel, will be valuable. Of course, I don't have experience working with ASUP in the Senate. I don't have the experience of the Financial Management Board, but I do have the skill set to do it well. There's going to be a learning curve for everyone, but I have faith that the team that's behind me and my strong communication skills will be able to help me successfully be a director of finance, one that the student body can count on to always be honest with their actions and intentions.
All right, if there's no follow-up, we're going to move on to the next question. Both candidates have promised to place an emphasis on diversity and equity initiatives currently being put forth by the university. This question is from students via the Instagram page. In what ways can you commit to furthering the university's diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives through your role as Director of Finance? Nikita, we'll start with you.
So as an Asian American, I believe that it is extremely important for everybody of every ethnicity to have a say in what happens at their university. When you are appointed director of finance, you have the opportunity to decide who your controller would be. And I would also like to propose the idea of creating a new representative, somebody who is actively involved in social media. So when hiring these possible new candidates, I think that it would be important to look into their experiences at the university and how they can offer some more representation to the ASUP executive board. I think it's about taking the time to actively seek out and look for individuals who want to be involved. And a lot of those times, those individuals are minorities because often their voices aren't heard. I want to make a commitment to the student body that diversity and inclusion will be one of my most important priorities. Being the director of finance will be the title, but my job is to serve the students. And if the students feel that their voices need to be heard, then we will do what needs to be done to make that happen. So when selecting a possible new controller, when possibly creating a new position, implementing diversity and actively seeking out individuals who can foster those relationships will be my first priority.
Thank you. All right, Cole, in what ways can you commit to furthering the university's diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives through your role as Director of Finance?
Yeah, absolutely. So diversity is critical to the university. First of all, what I'll say is I've already gone out and we're already going out as this team this year, and we've sought out diversity specifically for the Financial Management Board and the Spring 2021 team by reaching out to not only Yuri with diversity and inclusion, but Carolina, who is also working with diversity and inclusion. And so we were working with them specifically to market these financial management board positions to the student unions that we see on campus, and that are so impactful so that they can have a spot to make their voice heard. We also, this year in the creation of my budget, we gave money explicitly and directly written into the budget itself to diversity and inclusion, because that's a critical function at the campus and it needs to be preserved and continued. And so we wanted to show to them that they are a critical part of the university, and while they don't fit in constitutionally with the ASUP upper budget, we want to make sure that they're felt and their impact to the campus is understood to the student body and to them. So we allocated them money specifically out of our budget for the Spring 21 semester.
Are there any follow-ups?
I have a follow-up.
Sure.
I think it's important to remember that there's only so much you can do by reaching out and suggesting to the student body that their voices be heard. If they don't see directly that there is representation and they don't see directly people who look like them and people who have felt the way that they have felt managing their finances, as somebody, as an outsider, I don't believe that the confidence will be felt from the student body. And so if elected director of finance, it would be one of my top priorities to make sure that there's more than just an email that's sent out, that we are actively seeking individuals to be involved in the decision making, that we are actively asking clubs to give us their input and to tell us what they need, and then to hopefully run and hold ASUP positions so that they have representation and they can make those decisions as well as members, as board members.
Cole?
Yeah, absolutely. I would just point to the diversity that is already in the financial management board for this year that I hired. The board right now is over 50% female, and we have various representations, including grad students and undergrads, and we have various minorities contained within the financial management board. So there's a wide array of diversity that's already being included, people that look like a broad cross-section of the university so far. And I'm very proud of the work that I've done to try to make sure that everyone feels that their voice is heard within the university and that their voice can be heard by reaching out to anyone that is within ASUP, including myself, anyone else on the financial management board, and just anyone involved with finance in general.
Anything further, or are we ready to move on?
I'm ready to move on.
All right. So I'll pose this question to you first, Cole. As the director of finance, in a normal budget year, you'll have to interact with about 95 different clubs asking for money for their organization. Are you prepared to communicate directly with each club? And what sort of practices will you put in place to ensure that clubs feel heard during the budget process?
Absolutely. So right out of the gate, I really want to implement standardization. So that was a process that was used back in 2018 by Director of Finance Wester when he was the Director of Finance. And so that was like, if you have a hotel room and you're traveling 250 miles away, you get $100 a night. I want to be upfront with clubs about that so they know exactly how much money that they're requesting. I also want to make sure that it's known that I'm actually already interacting with these clubs through my work this year on the Spring 2021 team so far. So I handle the approve and deny requests for funding right now. So I reach out to clubs and say, hey, your funding request has been approved. Your funding request cannot be approved. And here's exactly why. And let's work to get that approved. So I really want to be upfront with club members when they're requesting budgets to get them as much money as they can and that they want to use by giving them feedback specifically. And I feel that that's a way that clubs respond very well. And so we can try to get everyone the money they want so they can have the programs and all the fun things that they want to do.
All right, Nikita, to repeat the question, with over 95 clubs that request money from ASUP annually, what sort of practices are you willing to put in place to make sure that every club feels heard during the budgeting process?
So as a club leader myself, I am very well aware of how difficult the budgeting process can be, especially when asking for money. And so, as I stated before, being proactive and making sure that there are meetings, more than one meeting that is available to students. I know that this year I was unable to attend the budgeting meeting due to a conflict. So I think that making sure that all of this information is first and foremost given out ahead of time and then followed up with emails, and then it is made known to all of the club members that they can interact with the ASUP Executive Board and Director of Finance directly. Not, you can have my phone number, you can contact me if need be, I'll text you back. And so as a club leader, I mean, my communication and my organization skills are well represented. Like I said before, I was able to foster relationships with individuals who haven't met each other in person. And this communication is instrumental and incredibly important in making sure that your student body feels heard, like you stated. And so I believe my marketing team and my active involvement in social media is just a testament to how much I will be proactive about reaching out to clubs and making sure that all of their budget requests are heard, understood, and then whether they're approved or denied, there is a legitimate reason as to what the case is.
All right, we're going to move on to our final question of the night. Oh, would you like to follow up, Cole?
Yeah, I actually have a follow-up to that.
Go ahead.
I think it's important to note that we specifically utilized the Zoom platform this year, and we got a lot of benefit from that. So one of the benefits that we had is we have a recording posted on the ASUP website. We also have a presentation posted there, a standard presentation that I gave off of, as well as a document outlining everything that was said. There was also emails that came out from Brian Dennis, who is our existing club infrastructure for receiving email, sending out emails to clubs and getting information out, including the Engage newsletter and an email. There was also emails that came out from Interim Director of Finance, Sage Taylor, who is handling the communications side of the Spring 2021 finance team.
Nikita?
I just want to, I'm sure all of us as students are fully aware of email fatigue and how difficult it can be to read through about several paragraphs worth of information. So of course, emails are important. And as Director of Finance, I will make sure to send out those emails, but also have alternative forms of receiving that information. Mr. Stoker, I know that you mentioned that all of that information is on the ASUP website. However, as a student, to be quite honest, I was unaware that the ASUP had posted that information. In fact, I reached out to one of the business senators prior to missing that meeting and was informed that that said Zoom link would be sent out to all club members. I never received that email, despite the email fatigue, and I made sure to go back and look. And unfortunately, I only recently learned more about the budgeting process. So my plan would definitely be to find alternative ways to interact with the students to ensure that all the information is given, but it's also given in a comprehensible way for everyone.
Yeah, so I guess my kind of response to that is what other forms of communication would you really like to see ASUP using? Because I know that Instagram is important, so it was sent out on Instagram through the ASUP News Instagram, but also I recognize that personally, I don't have connections to the entire student body. And so Instagram alone or any social media alone is an ineffective way to reach out to the entire group of need be, the entire group of clubs. And so working on communication within clubs and getting an email list, explicitly an email list that is, here's all of the club presidents is important. And it's a critical piece of something that I would want to be implementing because it was not implemented in the past. And the club mailing list that we have is antiquated. It's based off the Engage system. And so that's something that I really want to bring up and modernize, and something that I haven't had the opportunity to modernize yet because of the restrictions within Engage and not having a director of finance.
Nikita, if you want final follow-up before we move on to the next question.
So you asked if there are any other methods and speak about modernization. I think it's important to note that social media is the future. And so my goal would be not only to modernize the Engage page and make sure that there is an email list present, but also to hopefully create a position where being actively involved in social media, making sure that ASUP has a direct link to each club through social media, because there will be a social media director, would be the most ideal way to get that information across.
All right. Our final question of the night. As the director of finance, you also sit on the ASUP executive board. The ASUP executive board directs a lot of policy initiatives for ASUP that fall outside of the specific scope of the director of finance. My question to you, are there any campus issues that you are passionate about that you are willing to fight for the rest of the spring semester? Nikita, we'll go to you first.
Being a woman on campus has been very difficult because I believe that there was an initiative created that we were not able to I believe we were not able to completely fulfill, having access to menstrual products. And so I think that it's important that all the feminine issues, Title IX issues, I myself have been involved in situations where my voice was not heard. I was not taken seriously, and it was because there was no one that I could go to speak about these issues. And it's more so just from personal experience being a woman on campus and not just having access to products, but also having access to other leadership people who are female, who will take our crises seriously. I want to be able to be somebody who is available to any woman who is in distress, any woman who needs something on campus, any woman who has had issues with other individuals. And I think that director of finance is a very important position. And yes, it is about finance, it's about finance management, but you are going to be a representative. You are going to be on the executive board, and you are going to have a lot of say in how different cases are handled. In my past experience, some cases have not been handled to the best of my abilities or to the best of the abilities of the student body. And so mitigating those issues and being a voice for those unheard is something that I want to be able to do, and I'm extremely passionate about.
Cole, outside the scope of your role as director of finance, are there any issues on campus that you're passionate about, that you're willing to fight for the rest of spring semester?
Yeah, so I think specifically first, the first thing I'll talk about is the best part of ASUP for me and the most accomplished that I've felt in my senator role is when I get talked about in the ASUP e-board meetings, because that is something that is really impactful for me especially, but also for any student leader to have their voice heard. And so something that I would want to do right out of the gate is really help to prop up anyone within ASUP or outside of ASUP that wants to combat an issue that they see on campus. And I think that's a critical part of being the director of finance, is to enable change and to financially enable change specifically. I think the big kind of issue that I personally feel I'd want to tackle myself, I think, is the whole SASA not being a club, being a club, and getting that kind of churning. I know it's been very hard for them to find funding and to get funding because they're not a club yet. But I would want to take that on and really work hard to get them into exactly where they and their club leadership wants them to be, so that they can start really enacting the changes that they want to make within UP itself. And so that would be something that I would tackle right out of the gate, and I would fight hard for.
All right, if there's no follow-up, we're going to move into our closing statements for tonight. Closing statements are about 2 minutes long. This is your final case to the student body on why you should be elected Director of Finance. Cole, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I don't have any plan remarks for a closing statement, but I really do want to give a heartfelt thank you to everyone that's supported me so far, and everyone that's reposted my Instagram and told their friends about my election. Y'all are really the best, and you really mean the world to me. Everyone who's out there that hasn't voted yet, your vote really matters now, especially we've seen with this political climate, and this is really the birth of what comes later on to the U.S. government and everything else. But your vote now matters more than ever. And this is going to be an incredibly close race, and just get out there and vote. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for considering me and taking the time to be here or watch the recording if you're watching the recording.
Nikita, final statement?
So I would like to close out by reading a short quote from an op-ed written by the 2019-2020 Director of Finance, Brendan Wexted Hand. Quote, "It is the responsibility of the Financial Management Board and the Director of Finance to allocate funds as equitably as possible while taking into account all 106 groups here on campus asking for funds." End quote. I am certain that this goal and responsibility is difficult to achieve without equitable representation on the ASUP Executive Board. I am here to make a change to this inequity. My vision is to create an impartial leadership committee that is reflective of the student body and its interests while servicing their needs. As a South Asian American woman, I want to be just one in a long line of minority individuals who will also hold significant ASUP roles. All voices are important and need to be heard. So I encourage all of my fellow UP students to come out, vote Nikita Tewari for your 2021 Director of Finance. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you to both candidates for joining us today. Excellent job. Thank you to everyone in the audience for coming and watching. Remember, you can vote on Engage, and you have until Friday at 4 p.m. to cast your votes. For elections updates, you can follow ASUP_news, and on our Instagram account, you can find election times, the links to this debate that will be posted later tonight, and links to both of the candidates' pages. Thank you to everyone for joining us, and have a great Wednesday night.